the United Nations Human Rights Council sessions for many years now. I'm a journalist. I've seen how I have seen the manner in which in 2009 UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon arrived in Sri Lanka, spoke to Mahinda Rajapaksa, issued a joint statement. In accordance to that joint statement, the UNHRC sessions began in 2010. Now we've seen this year in, year out. What action has the United Nations Human Rights Commission done or taken thus far? They only talk. 13 years and counting. If there was action taken by the United Nations Human Rights Council sessions against Sri Lanka or on Sri Lanka to ensure that accountability lies somewhere with regard to the 2009 war, for an example, you spoke about it earlier on in the show as well, things would have been different. We are still talking about these sessions. For how long?
I mean, as I said, Sri Lanka has been before the Council. Resolutions have been passed for 10 years. And those 10 years, every time the government goes and says, give us time, we are doing our best, we need your support. Every government, successive governments, this is not just one government. Mahinda Rajapaksa's government, the Palane government, the Gotabaya Rajapaksa government, and now Ali Sabri is in Geneva, as reported in the media, saying the same thing. So it speaks to failures at different levels, but it speaks to failures of a government that is not genuine in terms of addressing concerns on the ground. Now, 2009, the joint communique you mentioned, the one that Mahinda Rajapaksa and the then Secretary General Ban Ki-moon signed, specifically speaks about accountability, about addressing what happened in the past. Has there been any accountability? I keep going back to this question. We haven't seen anything that has held accountable those who are alleged with serious violations. And now we are seeing not just human rights violations, economic crimes. So it's successive governments that has really entrenched impunity in Sri Lanka. But it also speaks to a council that is looking at this situation and trying to see what more can be done. So the first resolution, just so that everyone is clear, spoke about the situation on the ground and urged the government to take action in Sri Lanka. 2012. 2013, a year after, the government went and said, give us more time. Then they came up with the Lessons Learned and Reconciliation Commission, the LLRC, saying this is our answer to accountability and reconciliation. Did it address the key concerns of the grievances of victims? No. But it addressed, it showed, highlighted human rights violations, from enforced disappearances to land grabs to militarization. That's all documented by a commission appointed by Mahinda Rajapaksa. So if anything, these commissions, and we've got successive commissions, what they have done is report, highlight, document violations on the ground. The resolution speaks to those domestic mechanisms, but say you need to go beyond this. And I think there's a misconception thinking the UN Human Rights Council can be a sanctioning body. It's not a sanctioning body. This is 47 members trying to engage with a country. With a country, if really interested, could do much more for their citizens. When the country specific fails their citizens, they can only pass a resolution. So your question, why is this happening again? Why is there not enough? Why is it happening
again and again? We speak about this, we speak about votes, Sri Lanka is defeated at particular votes in question, and then we speak about this matter again next year, and the reviews are taking place, and then again Sri Lanka is being discussed, Sri Lanka comes on the agenda. We've seen this cycle happening.
But Shamir, the international community can only do so much. It's up to the government, up to the citizens to take the next step. Now, I have to say, this year...
When you say citizens, what do you mean by that?
Citizens of Sri Lanka.
How can they take action?
Well, for starters, they did take action this year. And I know there are some who will contest it, but this year was remarkable in tens of thousands of people peacefully protesting and asking for change. That change, to some extent, happened where we had an unprecedented situation where the elected president with a large mandate had to flee the country and resign. And that change could have been utilized better by the elected representatives in introducing certain changes. Now we then have to look to elected representatives to bring the next step, which is not happening. So then you have more and more protests happening. And as a response to the more and more protests, you have repression happening. So it's unfortunate that the elected government is not heeding the calls of the people. And their response is issue a gazette, which is questionable, issue a bill, which is hugely questionable. Their response is the other way.
Right.
So I come back to the point of the international community can only do so much.
Yeah. So
it's up to the Sri Lankans to take the next step.
Right.